Vincent Van Gogh, people told him, you can't be a great painter, you only have one ear. You know what he said? I can't hear you.
Listening to Sippin' Sports, a Philly sports talk morning show with Chris, KJ, and Dalt. Proudly powered by 302 Birds. Let's take it to the show.
Oh my God! If you're an Eagles fan and you're fucking hyped up like me, that man, Saquon Barkley looked insane. We own Brazil. I know Chris has been a fan of him even when he was a Giant and he couldn't admit it. Chris, how are you feeling last night watching your boy deliver?
I mean, this is exactly what I expected from Saquon Barkley. I know others didn't think he was going to be this good. Giants fans were already, saying he sucks and all this. But Saquon Barkley, this is what he is. We had a couple good backs over the last few years. DeAndre Swift was a good back. Miles Sanders was a good back. Saquon Barkley is a great back. And the difference between a good back and a great back, you saw it last night. I mean, that catch that he made in the end zone, sure, tremendous throw by Jalen Hurts. There's only 3 or 4 running backs in the NFL who actually make that catch. Most running backs drop that. So for him to make that catch, for him to break through that 33-yard run was huge. And I think if the turf wasn't terrible, he might have scored on that. Just watching Saquon Barkley run through guys, it's amazing to see. Love to see it.
Yeah, it's insane, and it's surreal. I mean, that was the biggest thing that Jack kept saying last night that I definitely could not stop agreeing with, is we've seen Saquon Barkley for so long, like Dallas Goedert said, but we were used to seeing him in blue threads, and now he looks fantastic in Eagles white, Eagles green, and he absolutely delivered last night. We'll get into all this in a little bit. We have a whole topic on Saquon Barkley for you guys, but we're also going to be talking about our Phillies, a little bit about the Sixers moving to Camden, and a little bit more we got on tap. KJ also can't be here today. He is up at Saquon Barkley's alma mater today, hanging out. Stay tuned for that. Follow him on TikTok. I'm sure he's going to be posting a ton of content there today for college football Saturday. But man, it feels good to have the job done on a Saturday, waking up with both of your Philly sports teams winning. Chris, why don't you go ahead and take this one first? I mean, the Phillies just exploded last night offensively.
Yeah, and they seem to be back clicking as a team overall again. Guys right there, Bryson Stott starting to hit. He struggled the whole year. He's starting to hit. Johan Rojas is starting to hit. As a unit, they are starting to come together. Bryce Harper struggled. We've known this. But these other guys are starting to pick him up. Kyle Schwarber is really, really hot right now. I think he's got like 5 home runs in his last 4 games or something crazy like that. He's getting a ton of RBIs. The team is just coming together. Zach Wheeler, another good pitching performance. So this team is starting to roll again. They're back to where they were earlier in the season. And I know we're going to talk about the playoff odds here in a second, but they are really starting to play well, and they're the team that we thought they were earlier. So love to see what the Phillies are doing. 16 runs last night. They are the best team in baseball again, and they are 8 games up over the Braves and Mets. So what more can you ask for right now?
Yeah, and like I kind of have thought too, the Phillies are not always, Chris has on the Phillies hat. I got on the Eagles hat. Now, Chris also watches both games all the time, but Chris knows a ton about the Phillies. He's definitely like the Phillies expert of the show. I have put in all my focus into the Eagles because I'm not going to lie. As soon as August 1st hits, I'm like, a fucking squirrel.
You'll
But
be at the damn parade, though.
I will be at the damn parade, and I will be watching. Once they get to October, it's a different kind of fandom too for
type of
like the
baseball, too.
amateurs. We start to ramp it up. I'm not gonna lie, but it's gonna be a fun time because if anybody also took the Philly parlay last night, my problem was I had $2 left over and I took it in like pay me like fucking like 7 or something maybe. But they just are both humming. The Eagles look great. The Phillies, from what I've seen, have really found a way to put it back together. They went through that rough patch where they didn't know what they were doing. They were kind of in a dark room, just fucking fumbling around and knocking everything over. And they had all this talent that they weren't really honing in on and utilizing. And it feels like everybody's finally doing their job again. I know Alec Boehm is not the best situation right now, too, but that'll get better. We're going to take it day by day. He's going to take it day by day. And, you got to understand, too, it's not always going to go perfect. So you got to be great and not grateful for injury, I'm saying, but grateful for like, okay, it could be worse. So the Phillies, I think, are actually in a really good spot heading into the postseason, which actually gets us to our next topic, which is the Phillies being the favorite to win the division at minus 2,500, which is insane to me because they've been up, down. I feel like if I'm a Phillies fan, I'm not taking this bet. This is horrible odds because with our luck, if you fucking bet on this team's going to shit the bed. So you Philly fans, don't touch this. I'm not touching it because you're going to make $3 to jinx us. And that's best case scenario. Worst case is you jinx us. But I do feel confident that the Phillies, like I said, they're in a pretty good place. I feel like physically and mentally, they could have more injuries right now. It could be worse. Alec Boehm is obviously, your star player, but it could be worse. It could be worse. So I think that they're going to end up closing out the division. And then what will happen after that, we'll see. I don't know if I want them to be the 1 seed going into the playoffs because the past 2 years from the NL, the 1 seed has gotten knocked out, being the Phils last year. And I think, no.
It was the Braves, or it was either the Braves or Dodgers last year and the Braves or Dodgers the year before.
And then the Phillies ended up getting knocked out 1 year, too, when they had expectations. But long story short, what I'm trying to say is I don't want this team to have a bye. I don't want this team to lose momentum. I definitely think that plays true in baseball, and especially with this team and its mojo. Like, these guys need to stay out there cranking the ball like a well-oiled machine. I don't need 16 runs every game. But, hey, if they can go out every night and consistently put up 5 or 6 runs, I think that they're going to go deep into the playoffs. And then we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah, I'm on the other side of that. I hope they do get the bye. I just think you got the older guys like Bryce, who's really hurting right now pretty bad. Schwarber, like these guys, they turn it on and they turn it on quick. They know how to turn it on. That doesn't worry me as much as like the Braves are a different team. The Dodgers are a different team. They seem to do this every year. The Phillies get hot in October. So, having that bye, I think it'll actually help them because it'll give some guys some rest. Like, Boehm really needs the rest right now. I mean, he's on the IL right now, but he's still going to be banged up no matter what. The whole team's banged up. You get that extra 5-6 days, and you don't have to play a team there. You're automatically in the divisional round. I'd rather have that, then you win the divisional, you're in the championship series, then you're in the World Series. It's one less place you got to go through. So I'd much rather have that bye and not have to go through it. So I think the Phillies are just a different team than the Dodgers and Braves were. Not saying the Phillies are going to win the World Series, not saying that, but I think they have a better chance at not choking, unlike the Braves and unlike the Dodgers. That home field advantage Phillies got. Completely different than those other teams.
No, I love that take. I mean, I hope either way it goes well because they need to just win the games is the thing. Like at some point, it's not going to matter if they have a bye. It's going to matter what they do on the field at the end of it. So I hope that they can show up, and that would be great if we can get, that bye because it takes the stress off of us fans too. And look, I love watching playoff baseball, but I would much rather get that, past than having my fucking heart rate and shit go up and down. And I know Chris is probably even more some because he's more of a fan than me. I mean, how do you feel about that? Would you rather have a game to watch, or you're taking that? I'm taking that bye in the NFL too. I mean, it's a bye.
I mean, if you look at the last couple of years, they've gone cold like 2 games before it was time to win it all. Last year, they went cold 1 game before the World Series. The year before that, they went 2. All they had to do was win 2 more games. If you take away that 3-game series, that extends it. If that's what their hot period is, 12 games or so, that's a World Series championship. So having that might actually propel the Phillies more. I mean, there's so much that can go into it. The Dodgers just got Yamamoto back, so that's a whole other situation there you have to deal with. So I think the Phillies are close, and that bye could be that difference. It could not be too. Who knows?
Yeah, that bye, I think, could actually help them now that I'm thinking about it, second guessing, because it's like the younger guys, I'm worried about the daycare, about them, and Casty. I will say, in all fairness.
The
Casty,
daycare's had experience, though, at this point.
True.
The
Yeah, I
daycare's
guess
had
that they
2
learn
playoff
from their
runs.
fuck-ups at this point.
Yeah.
One would hope. One would hope. Because I love the daycare, and I say that statement with love. There will be some Philly fans out here that I know that get triggered by that. But hey, thank you, Dennis. I appreciate you. If you guys aren't doing anything this afternoon, come through to the 302 Fantasy Show, where Dennis and Sean are going to be giving you guys all that fantasy football advice. So I just realized this is my girlfriend's pen. Don't bust my balls for it. It's all we got in the house right now. But first ever win in Brazil. The Eagles fans represented so well, as they always do. Our guy, Philly sports guy, represented so well, as he always does. And everybody looked awesome. They looked great. And it was an awesome game. The one thing I'll say, too, before we get into this was a shootout. Unfortunately, Jordan Love's injury, prayers up to him. That's horrendous. That was not good at all. But when you look at this game was one of the most entertaining football games I think I've seen in a long time. It had everything. It had interceptions. It had offense. It had rushing touchdowns. It had good offensive line play. It had bad offensive line play. It pretty much had everything that you could want. And at the end of the day, the Philadelphia Eagles, our Philadelphia Eagles, figured out how to get the job done, which is insane. It's not easy to go anywhere else and play football, let alone another country on a different time zone in a soccer stadium with different grass, all led by Saquon Barkley, which we'll get to here in a second. But I mean, overall, the team win. I thought Reed Blankenship looked great. Shout out to Dennis. I'm going to bust his balls about that today. Yeah, he looked insane. I mean, how are you feeling about him, Chris?
Dude, I've been on the Reed Blankenship train this whole time. You're the one who was shit talking him in the offseason.
Well, I did, in all fairness, not to interrupt you, on the post-game show last night, there's video evidence, so I'll have to pin it now, maybe on this post. I did say I'd like to submit my apology form to Reed Blankenship, because I know I have been shitting on him. But I'm off the train now.
And he just has good instincts. Like, it's funny because there was a pass or two before he got the interception where it was a ball that like skipped up off the turf and he made like a snag against his midsection here. I'm like, damn, that's a nice little snag. It was like, it's nothing because it wasn't even really a catch because it skipped off the turf. But I'm like, he's got a different type of ball instincts that we don't see from some of the other guys on this team. Like Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean had a pretty good game yesterday. But that dropped interception was awful. That was a walk-in pick six. Ball was right in his hands and just dropped it. And it's not something you can really teach. These guys either have it or they don't. And Reed Blankenship just seems to have good instincts where, maybe the athleticism isn't there in some aspects, but he's a good football player. He's never going to be a superstar. He's not a Pro Bowler. And that's fine. You don't need every single player on your defense to be a Pro Bowler. But I think that Reed Blankenship's going to be just a solid second or third safety for you throughout the whole year. So I like what I saw from Blankenship. There's a lot of things that I didn't like from the defense. I'm not sure if we want to get into that now or later. But I liked a lot of what I saw from the defense, but there was a lot that I didn't like from the offense too. So
Well, yeah, right now is definitely more of a general topic. So if you want to go ahead and dive into it, feel free, bro.
So yeah, I didn't like the defensive line that much at all. I think that they came up short a lot. Their 2 sacks were from Zach Bond, who was a linebacker, who played pretty well. I mean, he had a big missed tackle too, but the edge rush was just not there. Sweat didn't do anything. Nolan Smith didn't do anything. Bryce Huff didn't do anything. And, maybe that could be a lot to do with the way the turf was, because I didn't really see the edge of the Packers doing too much either, besides when Jalen Hurts decided to run all the way out to the sideline and basically run himself into a sack, which whole different story. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, the defensive line, the edge in particular wasn't great. Jordan Davis looked pretty good, and so did Jalen Carter. But then I look at the safety play. Maddox sucks. Maddox is garbage. Get him the fuck out of here. I don't want him to ever see the field again. And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson looked like dog shit too, and he's running his mouth post game, which I am so fucking done with that bullshit. Like, you played like shit. Stop going out and running your mouth. Like, yeah, I know I couldn't make that tackle either, but I'm also not paid $8 million a year to make those tackles. So it wasn't just one; it was multiple times where he's fucked up in coverage. He just didn't look good at all. Looked frankly horrible. So hopefully that's just, it was a bad game out in the middle of fucking Brazil. Like, hopefully it's not going to happen again. But Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, not great. I don't know. Do you want to touch on the defense first and we'll go into offense after that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you said. The one thing I will say, I'll be good cop a little bit. I know usually Chris will be bad cop. I'll be good cop. Zach Bond, like you highlighted earlier, looked great overall. And so did Dean. Everybody, I'll say this. Everybody had a missed tackle. So I will let the grass pass. It rhymes. The grass pass goes one.
I know you like to pass the grass.
But, hey, week 1, you guys get the grass pass. You're good. Week 2, once you get home, this slipping, this getting burnt, it's not going to be acceptable with us Eagles fans. So you guys need to get that shit intact, get that shit in shape. I know I was listening to the pregame, and Tony Dungy said that the Eagles defensive backs did change their cleats right before the game from like lower cleats to higher cleats. So I'm sure the field was messed up. It was some kind of fancy grass blend of turf that's it's like a soccer field or some sort. But overall, I mean, the Eagles' whole defense, everybody pretty much had at least one mistake. So I'll give you guys the pass on that. But at some point, you got to figure out how to adjust to that. Like, that needs to also be an eye-opener, because where you guys also didn't really adjust and it was a close game at the end? The Chiefs game. You got lucky last night. Well, I wouldn't even say lucky. I would say you knew how to capitalize on the other team's mistakes. They didn't really know how to capitalize on yours. And it was a game that I think we all knew whoever had the ball last was going to win. And that was the case. So Eagles looked great, I thought. Once again, unfortunate news for Jordan Love. He definitely, I guess it got announced this morning, he tore his ACL. I think I saw somebody say that. I'll have to look that up.
I didn't see ACL. I haven't seen anything yet. They probably won't know until he gets back, probably Monday after they do all the MRIs.
I hope it's not bad, because
it's not bad. Well, and that's going to make this. What would be sad is like, it'll wind up being, we're all going to get talked about. Oh, we went in, we won this game in Brazil, and we beat a 4-win Packers team because fucking Malik Willis is going to have to play the rest of the year. I hope that's not going to happen. CJ's gonna
look at what our boy Alex is saying from Winging It. He said CJ is going to change his personality to a piece.
I get that, but it's also like, why the fuck are you talking shit after you got your ass exposed?
I do agree with that. Yeah, it used to piss me off when he used to do it in Detroit from an opposing fan. So I'm sure like Detroit fans are like, shut the fuck up. Like, because that's how I was. And look, I love GJ. I love him as a player. But if you have a bad game, you don't got to be, doing all that. You can be supporting all your teammates. But you just got to know when to open your mouth and when not to.
Yeah, I made some mistakes. We still won the game. Talk shit that way. But don't be like saying, oh, well, you wouldn't make that tackle. No, I wouldn't make that tackle. But like, you don't have to go out and say it. Like, and he brings up the example of A.J. Brown. Well, it wasn't A.J. Brown you were tackling. It was fucking Jaden Reed. So, I don't know. It's just that I don't like that type of shit. There's a lot of people that do like that type of shit talking. It's just, I like that type of shit talking after you win the Super Bowl. You know, talk your shit after you win the Super Bowl. It's just like he did all that shit talking last year with the Lions, and he played like shit in that NFC Championship game. And, you know, I don't want to say he didn't cost his team the game whatsoever, but he wasn't good in that game. And it seems like he talked a lot of shit when he was here too. So it's just, it kind of is who he is. But, you know, maybe he can tone it down a little bit at times. And, you know, if you would have went out there yesterday and had 3 interceptions or a big interception,
the whole city will be behind you.
Fine. But he didn't, like, if you talk the shit, you got to back it up too. Like if Ed Reed Blankenship was out there talking shit, hey, he got to pick. He won the game.
Yeah.
If Zach Bond's out there, Zach Bond's a little bit of this different situation because he's a guy who really wasn't even going to start until Devin White got hurt. But even like, so like some of it just pisses me off to an extent too. Like, I think it was like the first or second play of the game. Quinyon Mitchell makes a hell of a play, breaks it up in the end zone, but he gets up into the receiver's face, and it's like, you got to chill. We don't need a penalty here. You just made a hell of a play. Don't fuck it up by getting a penalty. And the same thing happened with Jalen Carter. He got a penalty because he got frustrated after he made a good play and got up in the offensive lineman's face. So, you know, maybe that stuff just needs to be calmed down. Maybe it's just, you know, week 1 excitement, playing a good team. But we'll see how that progresses through the rest of the year. But I could see that being a really bad thing happening later, where it winds up costing them a football game, and that's the last thing you need.
Yeah, a lot of them looked off, but like I'll say too, you get the pass week 1. Everybody gets the grass pass. And like Alex said here too, saying you never want Avonte Maddox to see the field. The guys that had multiple mistakes get less of a pass. Because they know the expectation here. Like, and they've been around, like, I know it's a new defensive coordinator. It's a new system, but like you're saying, it's not like these guys are going against Davante Adams anymore, which I can vividly remember, I think, Avonte Maddox having a good game against Davante Adams, maybe.
But that was when he was a corner. When they have him as a safety, or it's just not, he's not the same player. He's not big enough to play there. He's too small. He's not it. There's a reason they cut him in the offseason before they brought him back. He wasn't good enough. Like, I don't know why we keep trotting him out there. Play DeJean more. Like, you drafted DeJean in the second round. You're playing Avonte.
He is a locker room guy, is the one thing I will say. And it sucks to say that, and I know you don't care about that.
You know what?
Yeah.
Fuck that locker room shit. Because the Phillies played that locker room shit with Garrett Stubbs last year and wound up losing them the playoffs. So I'm done with the locker room bullshit, right? You can find players who can play that are locker room guys too. I don't give a shit. Oh, like Saquon Barkley, I'm sure is a great locker room guy. You know what he can do? Play football well. So you know what? And you know what should be making Dallas Goedert happy? The big fucking contract he has.
That is true. Well, like, I have a sweet spot for Avonte Maddox. Look, I love Avonte Maddox as a person, but yeah, sometimes it's a business. You got to just understand, okay, maybe this guy is not meant to play safety, and he could very well go to another team as a corner and ball out, end up, being a good player, because that's how it goes with the Eagles once they get rid of players. But unfortunately, I mean, last night he just looked off. I hope I'm wrong about that. I'm not going to give up on him week 1, Alex, I'll say, but if next week he's having those mistakes, I think I'll be pretty upset, because there's an expectation with Maddox too. Like, it's not that we just don't like him or this or that. I love him.
It's just there's
He just
there's
needs
no
to
more
be able to
improve
hang
like, you're
with
not
these
gonna
guys
see
like
any more
Quinyon
improvement.
Mitchell, Isaiah Rodgers, Darius Slay, and the list goes on and on. I can keep going because the Eagles have a plethora of corners and safeties now. I mean, that once people get healthy, once Sidney Brown comes back too, yeah, like Dennis is saying here, it's going to be a plethora in the secondary. So he
I
really
just
needs
look
to
at
get his
it
shit
like,
together.
you talked about some of those other guys like Ricks, Ringo, like those guys have a potential to get better. Maddox is who he is. Maddox isn't getting any better. He is who he is. He's a small, undersized safety who, when he's put against bigger guys, he's just not good enough. So I just don't see it with Maddox anymore. Maybe you have him as a backup to the backups, but is it worth it keeping him over a guy like Ricks? Keeping him over a guy like Ringo? Like, I'd rather see a guy like Ringo develop into that slot guy that you had for years to come, because as you just mentioned, Mitchell looked tremendous last night. Like, Mitchell's your outside corner. Even, Rodgers is coming back hopefully this week. I wouldn't put him back in the starting lineup. I would keep Mitchell there. Just let Mitchell play. And there's going to be times Mitchell's going to make mistakes. Mitchell's going to have pass interferences. He's not going to be tremendous. But you're going to have to deal with those growing pains. And if you do, he's going to be an elite corner for years to come. Man, Brandon Boykin, that's a fucking name I haven't heard in a while.
That is a name I haven't heard in a while.
But give it to Ricks or give it to Ringo. I think letting one of those guys play, you're going to have growing pains there as well. But you also have the pains with Maddox playing too. So I'd rather, maybe see an upside out of it instead of seeing Maddox out there who just, he's Maddox. That's it.
Yeah. I get that, because these younger guys have so much potential. And they need to, make those mistakes to be able to get better. So I'd rather those mistakes happen earlier in the season. Not saying that there's going to be a lot of them. I think Quinyon Mitchell had one play last night. The rest of the game, he looked like an NFL veteran. So it's nice to see that the guys that they invested their capital in, I think a lot of
Except
people,
for DeJean.
Yeah.
Except for DeJean.
Yeah. Well, give it time with him. I was going to say, because the Eagles invested a lot of capital into the secondary as a whole this whole offseason. So it's nice to finally see it pay some dividends. Another piece that they invested a lot of capital in was getting that running back, that rumbling man, Saquon Barkley, out of Penn State. And man, Giants fans, hey, I just want to say, must fucking suck to be a fucking Giants fan right now, because, oh my God, you guys are just watching this guy basically go, could have done this there, suck it. All you had to do is get me an offensive line, and you dipshits didn't. Deuces. And he went the fuck off
He was
last
amazing.
night. And my favorite thing is seeing how angry and triggered all the Giants fans are getting. Some of them are mad at themselves. Some of them are mad at their organization. And some of them are just mad at the situation as a whole. My favorite, too, is the Eagles fan. Shout out to Uncle Tony, if you guys remember him from Geno's, with this Facebook status. I want to quote, Barkley, this is South Philly talking, okay? This is how South Philly feels about Saquon Barkley. Barkley 3 TDs tonight and still going. I would blow him right now if he was in front of me. No Diddy. That's literally what his Facebook status said. Shout out to Uncle Tony from South Philly. And
that's a fucking South Philly guy right there.
It's crazy. Everybody talking about it, but it's fair to say the city is already behind this dude. It started off a little bit slower last night. I did call that. I think it was on our weekly show. I said, I don't think either team's going to score on the first drive, because it's just like jitters. You know what I mean? Everybody, if you're in a new place, you got to get it out. They're both younger QBs, and that happened. Saquon had that first run, and he fell flat on his face. And everybody that was at our watch was like, oh, shit. And I'm like,
here we go again.
Yeah, here we go again. Yeah, DeMarco Murray 2.0. And everybody's like, no, don't even say that. I'm like, I'm kidding. And we all knew it was just a matter of time until he got humming. This offensive line got humming. And as a whole, as a team, they just went off. The one thing I will say, too, before I let you take it, Cam Jurgens needs to get his shit together. that communication was not there.
And
We'll
do you
get
know
to
whose
that
fault
next.
that is?
Huh?
That is Nick Sirianni's fault for not playing these guys in the fucking preseason. That's
I
whose
do
fault
like
this
that
is.
take, which we can get to that next here in a second. But I just want to say, I did want to, highlight the realism of Cam Jurgens. But I want to say, after that mistake, I thought Cam Jurgens played well as a whole. I thought
It's
he got
okay.
his shit together. And, he's going to hopefully eventually be that Kelsey 2.0. But what
He's
I'm
never
trying
gonna
to
be
say
Kelsey.
is when he can be that guy that's boom, upfield, can lay those blocks, it's going to be insane. Because they did have that one hole for Barkley that he went,
was
I think it
Becton,
was in
man.
between the center and the right guard. Or
Yeah,
maybe it would have
Becton
been the
fucked
right
him up.
tackle on the right guard. I think it was the center and the right guard. So I think it
it was the
was
center and right guard,
Becton
yeah.
and
Becton.
fucking Jurgens. And they opened that hole. So this is going to be a fucking beautiful thing now that he finally got a line.
Yeah, it looked really good last night. And there was a few losses he had there, but for the most part, you give him the ball, he's going to get you 4 or 5 yards. And just like that last drive where he almost scored on that last one, which I still think he may have gotten in. But he wears teams down. The catching ability he has, it's just it's uncanny to what they've had before. And now you give a guy in Kellen Moore, he had Austin Eckler, who was good in the pass game, not great in the run game before. He had Ezekiel Elliott, who is pretty good in the run game, pretty good in the pass game. But Saquon is great at both. You have a talented dual threat running back wide receiver combo that you can go to at any moment. And it's just he's fast, he's quick, he's strong. He is like the prototypical, if you were to ask for something, the speed from one guy, the strength from another, like the speed from, let's see, who's a really fast running back in the league. See, just like you take a good thing from every running
He's as
back in the
fast
league.
as DeAndre Swift, who's a pretty fast running back in the league.
As fast as DeAndre. He's maybe not quite as strong as Derrick Henry, but he's strong as fuck.
He's right there with him, yeah.
He's got the receiving ability of a CMC or, an Eckler. So he's got that every part of it except for the injury history, which we worry about, which, that 2-minute drive there before half, he wasn't in there because we think he might have been hurt. So I would like to see them mix in a couple Shipley runs more there, a couple more Gainwell runs. I think 24 might be a little too many carries for Saquon if we want to let him, last throughout the whole season. But the 3 touchdowns, just you can't argue with that. You can't argue with the results. He's a good running back. It's just who he is.
And the one thing I like that you just alluded to, Chris, was they gave Saquon his takes. They gave him the ball. They gave him the ball in the end zone and the goal line, as they should. There was a lot of questioning in the offseason of, will they utilize Saquon there? They will. That's what last night, the Eagles showed their cards, that it's going to be a Saquon Barkley season. But the one thing I'll say, too, is I don't think Saquon could ever, have a bad thing like an injury. I don't even want to say that. But you're right about getting Gainwell and these other guys like Shipley the ball. Because if, God forbid, something like that ever happens, you want these guys to be conditioned with NFL snaps. And also, don't put Saquon out there with more, potential to get hurt. You don't need to use him 24 times a game, like Chris said. You can put him out there, I think, 17, 15 times and be fine. And then once you get to the playoffs, then he can have these games like this where you can lean on him. I think Saquon Barkley is also in his prime right now of his career. The Eagles got him like for the perfect, I think it's a 3-year stretch with the contract technically is. They got him like that money worth that they got. It's a bargain for both sides. Saquon's able to stay in Jersey. Eagles are able to get him at his prime. I mean, it's a win-win.
Yeah. One last thing I want to talk about with the Eagles before we move on a little bit. The offensive line and the tush push. It's just it's different, and I'm not sure if they can run it like anymore. Jurgens just doesn't seem to get as low as Kelsey did. Now maybe I want to hopefully chalk this up to, being the first time that they've really ran this in a real game. But it worries me that Juergens isn't the guy we need at center. But we're going to talk about Hurts a little bit too after this.
Yeah, we are. So
Yeah.
getting into that, I mean, how did you feel about his decision making overall?
Not great, honestly. I looked. There was a stat last night. In his last 18 games, he's got 23 turnovers. Way too many. You know, in the Super Bowl run, he had 7 interceptions total. He had 15 last year, 2 last night already. Like, he's got to be better with the football. And I think the prime example of it was that 3rd and 13 along the goal line last night. They kick a field goal, they go up by 5. He decides to go roll out to the right, throw across his body into the end zone, and get picked off. Can't do that. You just can't do that. And I'm tired of hearing, oh, he's developing quarterback. He's in his 5th year now. I don't know how much more development you're really going to get. So he's got to chill on the interceptions, chill on the running out to the right every single time. And not only does he run out to the right, he runs all the way back too. So when he's throwing another 10 yards back and across his body. Like if he's going to roll out, at least roll out and go towards the line of scrimmage. And if it's not there, either take off or throw it away. I feel like it takes too long for him to make that decision. He needs to be quicker with that decision. Either throw it or you don't. Like, but the taking the sacks, the running all the way across his body, it's annoying to me. And I hopefully it's just first game jitters and he's going to get over it. New offense. But these decisions that he's making are just not good. It's not good. And they're lucky that they won that game. And he did make some good plays in that game. The talent is there. I think that's what's so frustrating is he can be that quarterback. And we've seen him be that quarterback. But it feels like there's some regression here ever since that Super Bowl last year. Or not last year, the year before.
Well, you hit the nail on the head too, Chris. He can't be fucking running across the field, having those throws across his body, playing hero ball like Carson Wentz did. That was when Carson Wentz started to have his downfall.
That's what it's reminding me of,
did too much. Yeah, exactly. So I think that once Hurts settled in, yeah, he got his rhythm. He's like, okay, I'm getting too excited. I need to calm down. He looked good. That first half, especially, though, he needed to settle in. And you can't have that in the NFL. Even in the first game, you can't. You got to be a professional. Like, look at somebody like Mahomes, you know? And I'm not saying everybody's perfect. I'm just saying you got to be smarter about some of those decision makings because there were a couple of throws, man, that were in triple, double coverage in the beginning of the game. Some of the catches Devontae Smith just made because he's small, which I get it, man. I'm smaller too. I remember backyard football, sometimes being small, you can go right in that tight window, get the ball, go right down, don't touch. You know what I mean? Like it's actually an advantage in some ways being smaller in tight windows. So Devontae Smith was getting some of those catches in traffic, but it's still like, dude, what are you doing putting the ball like right there? Like you have this like drag route opener, you have your running back open, and he did have that beautiful throw, I'll say, to Saquon Barkley on the wheel route that they utilized for the touchdown, which was phenomenal. That's the decision-making I want to see. But you can't be chucking it up. Like that one throw to Devontae Smith when he was in double coverage and it was almost picked in the beginning of the game. It's like, what are you looking at? What are you throwing at? And he's getting excited because he's getting rushed, but you can't just chuck it there. And I know you trust your receivers, but not in double coverage like that. Not dumb decisions like that.
Let me ask you another thing. Does he look slower to you? Because he doesn't look like he's got the same speed that he had.
I think he's I'll say this. I don't think he looks slower because when he took off, he takes off. I think he's waiting longer to take off, which isn't a bad thing. I think that they said to him this year, like, hey, I want your primary, like, pass the fucking ball. Like, don't fuck around. Like, don't be running the ball, you know, because they're going to figure that out eventually. They're going to put down a spy in the playoffs, and that's only so good so long. Look at what happened to the Ravens the year that Lamar won the MVP.
Yeah.
Point being, I will say, if Jalen Hurts, did he gain any weight this year? I don't think he did. Maybe like 10 pounds?
He doesn't look.
He's what, 240? Yeah.
He doesn't look as athletic as he was. Now, I
think he's just looking more to run the ball, but go ahead, take it. Why do you think that?
It doesn't, maybe it's just an indecisiveness or he's just holding the ball longer, which I'm not sure is good with Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts is better when he gets rid of the ball quickly and doesn't have too much time to think. I don't know. It's not that he doesn't know how to read a defense. I think he just like overthinks it too much instead of, making that quick throw or making a decision. It's like, I feel like that's more what they need to do is just have him go and make the decision quicker. It almost feels like, when the same thing with Carson Wentz, when they gave Carson Wentz too much time to do things, that's when he fucked up. It's like, just let him go. Like, stop trying to force the extra 15-yard pass or whatever. You can take that 5-yard pass. You can take that dump off. And some of those dump offs to Saquon Barkley might wind up being a 15, 20-yard gain instead of that little 3 or 4-yard gain. So, like, there was a time, too, where they were driving down. And it was, I think it was right before the half ended. He took a sack where he ran backwards, and it wound up being 2nd and 6, where if he were thrown away, it would have been 2nd and 10. The clock would have been stopped. And they may have scored a touchdown there. They might have scored a touchdown anyway, but still, like, it's just not the same. It's got to be better. It's got to be better, and it's early. So
yeah, there were definitely some sloppy mistakes, and even though it's early, like you said, there's no excuse for it. That's one thing that neither of us will be good.
They still beat one of the better football teams, and they still beat one of the better football teams in the NFC.
Definitely, I think one of the better teams in the NFL. I would say Packers are a top 8 team, in my opinion. Yeah.
Now we'll see what Jordan Love. Like, if Jordan Love's hurt, that team is a bottom team in the league. But
yeah, it's shot. He led that team. He was really, and a lot of people say that he's not that guy. Like Jack said, Jack laid into Love last night. He's like, he's not that.
He wasn't that good last night, though.
And he doesn't deserve this contract. And look, I'll say he didn't really deserve that contract after a half season, but they did it anyway. And here's the thing I'll also say. As much as we may not want to admit it, the Packers always figure it out with QBs. They've only had like fucking 3 of them since 1960. So I'm kidding. Like they've had like 6. But seriously, it's insane of how they develop QBs. Them with QBs and the Steelers with wideouts. I don't know what the fuck it is, but both of those teams just have something in their drafting with them.
Yeah, I agree.
But overall, I mean, I will say Jalen Hurts did have a couple great throws. And I think a lot of that's thanks to Kellen Moore. I just wanted to say that really quick, too, on our way out of here. I think Kellen Moore called a great game overall.
The motions were great.
The motions, exactly. Like when I saw that throw to A.J. Brown, it reminded me of that touchdown catch that A.J. Brown had against the Saints on New Year's 2 years back when he just took off. And the reason I remember it is A.J. Brown was running so fast that the pixels on my screen, there were like 2 A.J. Browns. He was running that fast. It was insane. And I remember at the Saints game, it was the same route of him coming across the field, like a crossing play action, and he just took the ball and housed it. And it's like, it's like you feel like you're watching Julio Jones. And that
Julio Jones that weighs more. Like, Julio was slim. A.J. Brown is fucking built.
He's insane. It's like fucking Wolverine out there in an Eagles uniform because this dude was he was trucking. And my favorite,
he was that fast. Like Jair Alexander is a pretty damn fast corner, and he ran away from him. Like that was just that touchdown altogether. That throw, the catch, everything that was a really damn good play out of half, and that's where they kind of took over the game. I'm like, okay, they might actually win this one. But, that was a really good play there. And the other one with the motion was the Saquon Barkley touchdown. You had Dotson and it was either Smitty or AJ clear out to the other side and left that wheel route open for Barkley. That's a scheme thing. They schemed Smith open multiple times last night. These things are things that they didn't do last year that can really benefit them this year. And with you start scheming your stars open, you're gonna win a lot of football games this year.
You could tell that Kellen Moore came with a plan. He had plays ready for those and that was really nice to see because last year it was like Brian Johnson looking at like Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts like, ooh, yeah, what are we doing? Like, and it's like, no, you're the offensive coordinator. Take the bull by the horns. use your players' strengths. Like, you can ask for their opinion. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you should be the leader. You should be the executive. You should be the one at the end of the day calling the final shots, pushing the buttons. And he was last night. Like I said, I mean, 34 points on that Packers team is not an easy feat. Rashawn Gary, great defensive rusher. He was coming for Hurts' head last night. And the fact that they still were able to put up that, the thing I will say on our way out of here too, I'm a little bit salty about my bets. Dude, I had a parlay. It was like $10. It would have paid 300. I had Saquon first TD, Jalen Hurts over 278.5 passing yards. He had 278. So if he would have had one more yard, and then an Eagles to cover by 2 points. So I was this close. So Jalen, please get your decision-making ready for next week, just for your old friend's standpoint. I know you don't give a fuck about my bet because you're an NFL player, but I mean, it's very frustrating from that point. But I will say he also had a great game. I mean, 278 yards against the Packers. That's no easy feat. So shout out to Jalen Hurts, because even though there were bad things, there were good things. So I know he's probably already watching all the film on the flight home.
I placed a bet. Well, at least I thought I placed a bet, a 10-legger that would have hit. And then I go back in my app when the game started. I'm like, fuck, it never went through. I'm like,
oh, that's the worst.
I'm pretty sure it hit too. That's what sucks even worse. I think it was like $10 to win 150, but I'm like, it didn't go through. But
I think that this team is going to get a lot of bets this year between Saquon and Jalen. I think anytime TDs between the two of them and stacking them, you're pretty safe as an Eagles fan, is what I'll say. But I don't know if you have anything else. That's all I got. If you guys enjoyed the show, please be sure to drop a like, subscription, comment. Give Chris a follow, please, at Chaos Chris PHL on Instagram, on TikTok, Twitter too. He's very popular on Twitter as well. And then follow us at 302 Birds and all of us at Sippin' Sports Pod. But you got anything else to say on the way out of here, sir?
No, just and same thing. You guys have been watching TikTok this whole time. Make sure you guys go follow 302 Birds on every single platform out there. They're on everything, like literally everything. I think they're even on Pornhub. So
possibly.
Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next week.
Thank you guys. Have a good one. Out of here.